Previous basket is under review.
There's a lot of talk in college basketball that Cinderella is dead, that the changes to the landscape in college basketball have made it impossible for the non-power programs to compete in the NCAA tournament. We saw last year the struggles that even teams that we identified as having amazing years, the UC San Diego's of the world, couldn't quite get over the hump. I'm not quite as big a downer on some of those things. I will say I think that at the end of the day, Fawcett, I would say, like, the game has changed, no question. The way you recruit has changed, no question. But I still think it's entirely possible to build an awesome team and build a team that is dangerous in the NCAA tournament. And particularly at some of these places that have real NIL budgets and have invested pretty heavily in building great teams. And it's nice to see that pay off. So we wanted to go through and identify. We're going to do a two-part series. First one will be some of the kind of mid-plus teams that have the potential, not just maybe to win a game, but maybe make some noise in the NCAA tournament because of their talent. These are top 100 level teams with big time wins, big time skill, big time coaches. But we'll also do a one bid league kind of extravaganza and get into some of those ball clubs that are incredibly skilled or are doing things a different way that has allowed them to have early success and could maybe scare the right 4 or 5 seed on Selection Sunday. So Fawcett, I guess before we get into these teams, are you a Cinderella is dead truther, or do you think that the magic of March can live on in this era?
Yeah, one of the things that I always find interesting about college basketball discourse, and I'll talk about this first just in the context of like high major leagues, when people are arguing, okay, well, is this league better than this league? It's always interesting to me because a lot of people are arguing different things. Like, people will be arguing what league is better, and one person will say, oh, well, look at this league. It has 2 teams that could win the national championship and 3 or 4 teams that could be Final Four contenders. And then someone else will say, like, okay, yeah, like I recognize that, but like, oh man, teams 8 to 16 are so much better than your team 8 to 16. And you start arguing about like, okay, well, what does it mean to be a better league? Is it depth? Is it teams at the top? And I think you can make reasonable arguments for both. So when it comes to some of these teams and some of these leagues that we're talking about, yes, I do think the depth of some of these leagues has been hurt. I do not think that the bottom half of some of these mid-major plus leagues is as good as it is. And like, yeah, there are some pretty disastrous programs. However, when you look at the top of these leagues and the teams that we're going to talk about, like, yeah, a lot of them pushing, 50, 60 in KenPom, looking like through non-conference play, playing very competitively with some very good high major teams, beating some good high major teams. Like, so I think if you wanted to say, okay, look at some of these leagues that were historically 2 or 3 bid leagues and had 4 or 5 teams that were good enough to earn those 2 or 3 leagues, like bids, like, yeah, the depth has been hurt in a lot of these leagues. However, I think that the teams at the top of them are very, very good and even better than they have been the last several years. So for that reason, I would say, no, I do not think that Cinderella is dead.
Yeah, I would say my prior is this. I think one of the real valuable points of for quote unquote Cinderellas was the ability to get older and have continuity in your roster, and that has largely vanished, right? Like, I think even these teams that we're going to talk about today that have found ways to retain some talent in some cases, like none of the teams we're talking about in either of these videos are simply oh, well, this team ran it back, other than Yale. Yale is the one team that quote unquote ran it back, and even they are not necessarily driven as much by true continuity and like, oh, we have all 5 starters back, as much as they have guys who've been in the program for multiple years stepping into roles. Like, other than that, you see all of these teams having to be aggressive in the portal, having to adapt their roster around maybe 1 or 2 key returning pieces. And so I think that makes it harder. It levels the playing field a little bit in March, but I do think you can build a really good team. Now, again, am I predicting that this year there's an FAU in our mix or a Loyola in 2018 in our mix, something like that? No, but I wouldn't predict that any year, and I wouldn't have predicted that when Loyola was good. I wouldn't have predicted that when FAU was good. It's really hard, and you gotta find, kind of strike fire right there. You gotta bang a couple of bang a couple of branches together, and all of a sudden, look, we've got something burning. That doesn't always happen. So, I do believe there's some really good ones, as you said, at the top. And if you look at KenPom efficiency wise, there are some very impressive teams from outside the power conferences. And I think the most impressive thus far has been St. Louis. Josh Schertz, I think you and I both were very high on him at Indiana State and the job that he did. And I think at the same time thought it was great for him to take that like intermediate jump to a really well-resourced program in St. Louis where he could continue to build and then maybe position himself to take a high major job after navigating the NIL and transfer environment even more. And I think you saw the difference this year versus last in terms of the way that he has been able to recruit and find really outstanding portal pieces to play around some returners like Robbie Avila and Amari McCautry, who's one of the more underrated talents in non-power basketball.
Yeah, and you can see with the way that Schertz's reputation as an offensive coach, like, yeah, you watch them play, and he's got that reputation for a reason. Also, an assistant coach in Zach Bovair, who Schertz brought in, who is very, very good. And the one thing that I think they do so well is that they're so good out of concepts, out of just playing within the flow of a possession, even not in these kind of dead ball scenarios. As the play starts to develop and dominoes start to fall, they're just so good at cutting, so good at finding space, and so good at capitalizing on a defense in rotation. But then they're also very, very good in dead ball scenarios and are really kind of capitalizing on the margins of being really good at baseline out of bounds plays, being really good at sideline out of bounds plays late, being really good after timeouts, like the stuff that I think will also really help them when it comes to postseason play where things kind of slow down a little bit. And of course, we know with Robbie Avila, someone who's known for his amazing vision and all that he's brought, but just a full roster of guys who can pass, dribble, and shoot, and more importantly, make the right reads. And I think that's really good. But what I do think makes this team very different is the fact that they've defended at a really high level. And one thing that's crazy is like they're one of the best teams in the country at field goal percentage defense at the rim, despite not having like the big time shot blocker or big time athletes there. And you see a lot of these plays. It's just like guys arriving early, defending with their chests, and kind of like forcing the defense into misses when like they think there's going to be more contact or a heavier contest at the rim. And it's just each play is like more interesting than the last in terms of their ability to defend the rim while not committing fouls, not having a lot of shot blockers. And that's something that was probably, could have been an issue last year if they were able to stay healthy and go on a little bit of a run. The defense was a little bit of a question. Maybe it still is a little bit of a question, but so far their defense has actually been really good. And, for a guy like Schertz, who's always known for his offense, like maybe getting a little underrated for his defensive scheme.
Yeah. They lost the two guys to Texas when the Indiana State breakup happened, if you will, right? They lost three starters, Julian Larry, who was a great on-ball defender and the true point guard of that team, Jason Kent, who was a phenomenal, versatile defender, and then Ryan Conwell, who was the most visible loss, right? The guy who goes to Xavier, it's putting up all the points and what have you. But it felt like last year with SLU, the guy that they really missed was Kent. And the person who's really stepped into that role is Kellen Thames, who is, I thought, impactful at times last season before getting injured and missing the remainder of the year. But he's top 10 in the country in steal rate. He flies around. He's a really good rebounder. And he's just an incredible rim pressure guy as someone that allows them to play smaller with Robbie at the 5 at times. I mean, he's 72% from 2. He's been great. Like they just have these bigger wings with him and McCautry. And then even, you can look at, more physical guards like a Deion Brown, who's a great guard rebounder and throws his body at the rim, with someone that was a elite finisher at UMBC, with someone that like had crazy numbers in terms of getting to the rim. And they were able to identify that after a okay year at Boston College and add that. So they just have a lot of options. I also think it's funny. I think the perception with a lot of the mid-majors with money, which is, there's, I would say probably like 20 to 25 mid-major teams that are in like the $2 to $4 million NIL range. If that's, and that would be my definition of with money. Those teams, I think the perception is it's harder than ever to build depth at this level. I think in studying a lot of those rosters, it's actually, once you have money, it's much easier to build depth than build star power, right? Because at the end of the day, the best of the best in the portal still don't want to go to St. Louis, right? Like, and that's not a knock on St. Louis. I would say the same thing about George Washington and Dayton and VCU. Like, you can take some shots, and if you have relationships with kids, and you especially if you can spend a little extra money, like you can take some swings. But for the most part, the benefit of having 3 to 4 million in NIL at this level, to me, is really the fact that you can stack up 7, 8, 9, $200,000 to $500,000 players, and those guys, that I think St. Louis has done a phenomenal job of. Right, it's Trey Green, who's transferring from Xavier, who's like super shifty with the ball, and Quentin Jones, who can play in ball screens, and Brown, and Ishan Sharma, who's a sharpshooter, and Otieno, who's the extra big that they have that they can throw in the mix if they want to play bigger next to Robbie, right? Like, you still needed the star in Robbie to come back, and the guy who stirs the drink for them, and you have to pay him well. But the portal it's easier for a SLU to, I think, build the depth and build all these options that he can throw at people than it is to go get 3 guaranteed all league players in the portal. I think SLU did a great job with their portal evaluations of targeting that.
Yeah, and that's a situation where it's funny because at the high major level, I'm usually much more like, you need to go get guys at the top end. Like, yes. I think depth is a little overrated. We have not done a Kentucky video. Not sure if we're going to do a Kentucky video. You can maybe draw lines to that, however you like. But when you're at the mid plus level, like, if you really drop a ton of your salary cap on a player that you kind of think like, oh, this guy like needs to be an absolute stud, if you miss on that guy, like, you are beyond cooked. And instead of doing that, I actually do like you said, at this level, going for a little bit more depth and seeing if 1 or 2 of those guys can emerge. But if nothing else, you've established yourself a bit of a floor while still having some ceiling. And St. Louis, really good example of that. So it is very interesting how you noted that, or at least my interpretation. I don't know if you feel the same way, but about the high major level. But for me, I do feel like the way that you have your allotment for these slots is very different to me from a St. Louis to a high major team. And St. Louis definitely showing the kind of one of the optimal builds for that level.
Yeah. And I think the thing I would say is, I think it's important not to just like take stabs at 3 of the same guy and hope it works out, right? Like, let's say, again, we'll throw really round numbers around. If I have $900,000 to spend at the point guard position, I don't want like 3 mid-major all-stars who like all who all have the same strengths and weaknesses, right? And I think that a lot of the teams that have struggled, that have a lot of money, it's not that they didn't get good players. Obviously there are misses here, misses there. But to me, it's more about they don't have enough upside with the pieces they got, and there's not enough differentiation between the guys coming in and out of the game. And the one thing I think SLU has done a great job of is all of these guys have clearly defined roles and things that they do really well, things that give them a reason to be on the floor. And that's been great to watch. So a shout out to them. I think a lot of the talk is about their X's and O's, and they're phenomenal there. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about the roster building and the roster construction side of things. I think they did a phenomenal job with, and I think that's a good transition to Colorado State, who has consistently done an elite job of recruiting both high school and the portal under Nico Medved. Ali Farouk-Manesh, a huge part of that. And they had a lot of pieces to go get this spring and retooled really, really nicely around, some of the same general skill sets in terms of shooting and skill, but also maybe adapting their system once they did to the personnel that they do have.
Yeah, and this is one of the kind of success stories of hiring, within the family, keeping an assistant, where they're running a lot of the same stuff. Hey, let me just do the job of some of these opposing assistants that have the Colorado State scout. Look at this exchange on the first side into a backdoor on the reversal that they run all the time. So you can see, 3, 4, 5 examples of it here. So let me just do the job of a couple assistants scouting right now. But this is something that they did so well under Medved, and with Farouk-Manesh just keeping the same kind of Princeton style that was so good for them going. This is another Colorado State staple under Medved, this slice screen action where, again, they're getting these physical wings going towards the rim with an advantage with this shuffle screen and getting these deep deep catches. It's all the stuff that was so good for Colorado State these last couple of years. They're continuing to do it. They're continuing to have these forwards that can really pass the ball, really good cutters away from the ball. And it, like, as you watch this, Sweeney, I mean, like, this won't be a surprise to you. You know the program well, but I think a lot of people who have just kind of like watched Colorado State a little bit, if you're watching these clips, like, this could have been 2024, this could have been 2023, this could have been 2020. Like, this is just, it just seems like such a seamless transition into the next era here. And I love all this Princeton stuff they're running, getting those easy backdoors, getting these quick kind of lateral pins in for shooters. And I'm sure you can talk about some of these guys, but the shot making they have and the numbers they're putting up from three right now are incredible. Some of that are these, like, nice actions where they get the quick pins, but a lot of it is like they do not need a lot of space for these shooters, and they're shooting at an extremely high level. But everything they do on offense to me is very intentional. They don't move around for the sake of moving around. They both run their stuff really tightly, but also not robotically. They've been a really awesome watch. And I think that I was maybe ready for somewhat of a step back after Medved left, but it looks like they just haven't missed a step at all. They've been a really good watch, and I think will be someone that could really make some noise this year in the Mountain West.
Yeah, no question. And again, it's a credit to lose not just Nick Clifford, but two guys that were major building blocks of the program, two sophomores in Kyan Evans to North Carolina, Jalen Crocker-Johnson to Minnesota with Nico. And then there were a number of seniors that graduated alongside Clifford. Like, it was really hard to do what Ali did on the fly with the roster build. They are heavily indexed towards offense, I would say. And their numbers reflect that they're a top 20 offense. They're barely a top 200 defense. They are small in the backcourt with Rex Steiner, who's barely 6'1", and Josh Pasquarelli, who is the number one burner in those videos. He is shooting the absolute cover off the ball. But a great recruiting credit to Medved, or to Ali, excuse me, and their staff. Like, Josh Pasquarelli is someone who was really good at Marist and had a phenomenal year, made 83s at 39%, was someone that I think a lot of the analytical models told high majors to go recruit, and he did have high major interest, but they were able to sell him on, look, like, you have an opportunity to be a difference maker at this level instead of a role player somewhere else and still get paid. And he has been just an absolutely phenomenal get and an unbelievable fit in terms of how they play. One of his Ken Palm comps that I actually think is a great one is Chance McMillan, and what Chance McMillan was for Texas Tech the last couple of years, just like an absolute burner who is a little on the smaller side, but makes an impact. And again, he's someone that I would not be shocked if he plays his way into, if he wants to be, he's $1 million player in the spring. I don't know that he will leave Colorado State. I think he's someone that has proven like this is a good place to be, but like and Colorado State's developmental track record is so good that, like, I would never leave that place. Like, they produce pros. Like it's got to be a really powerful recruiting pitch, and I think it helped sell guys like Pasquarelli on why they should pick Colorado State over better offers in the first place. I do worry about them defensively in March if they get to that point. Although I will say their defense should be better now that Rashawn Bemba is back a little, getting closer to being back in the mix. I know he came back in for their MTE, wasn't quite right. Now he's back on the sideline. I would say if Bemba can come back and be the guy that he was last year defensively, that will change their ceiling. But right now they're just straight up outscoring people, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So big fan of this group, and a huge credit to Ali for keeping the momentum going. He's someone that will be quickly onto the boards of high major ADs if the winning keeps up, and I certainly expect it will.
Yeah, Sweeney, do you have any quick notes here on the Mountain West, just kind of generally? I think that, again, some of these leagues we're talking about are going to fluctuate here in between like 1 and maybe 2 or 3 bids. So just some maybe quick thoughts on like what does Colorado State need to do here to be in a comfortable spot coming into March?
What's funny is I feel like the narrative around the Mountain West is that it's way down and like that it really struggled and there's all these bad losses. And then you look up and it's like, well, they have 3 top 50 teams. Colorado State knocking on the door as a potential 4th. New Mexico playing great and coming off wins over Santa Clara and VCU. Like a couple more teams in the top 100 that will be like quality wins in league play. Like it seems to have settled in somewhat to the same old recipe of like do enough in the non-league, put yourself in a decent metrics position, and then just beat each other up. Now, again, I would think that eventually the other shoe is going to drop, and I do think there's concern about San Diego State. They're not as good as you would thought. Boise's metrics are not impacted by the very bad Hawaii Pacific loss, although it could still hurt them from an NCAA tournament selection standpoint. Thank you to David Warlock, the NCAA stats guy, for making that clear to folks on the internet. Like, there are concerns, and I'm not going to sit here and say, let me put it this way. Usually at this point in the calendar, I feel confident in at least one Mountain West team as like, yeah, they're probably going to be an at-large team at this point. Like, I feel very good about them. One or two of them usually I feel like have separated a little bit. I don't know that any of them are in that spot just yet. I think Utah State might be in the best position, at least analytically right now, but it will be interesting to see if enough of them can emerge. But I still think there's a path to 3 bids. 4 might be a stretch, but I think 3 is very feasible.
Yeah, that was good notes because, yeah, like I said, the narrative is like, oh my goodness, this league is a disaster. And then, even a quick look at KenPom says something different. So I think everyone's kind of favorite league, or we'll see exactly though how this sets up too, and how these teams will be set up to play in March, and maybe they all get bad seeds and lose, and then everyone says, oh look, the Mountain West is underrated once again, which is not my personal belief. And again, watching the film now and watching how even a team like Colorado State plays, that, like you said, it's not like they're just like this clear winner or going to run away with this league. They're just one of 3 or 4 really good teams in this league, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm glad you could talk some people off the ledge here of the Mountain West disaster.
Yeah, it has not been as bad as the vibes feel like they are. Let's put it that way. So, all right, pivot to the Missouri Valley, where we wanted to talk about Belmont. And let me just first say before we get into this, like, Casey Alexander not being on every AD's list to me is and has been a absolute joke. This is someone who the last time he did not win 20 games in a season, the last time he did not win 20 games in a season, Barack Obama was the president of the United States. The last time he has consistently built an elite program, and he has been at a place where the adjustment to modern college basketball has not really happened. Like, the Missouri Valley has done a good job of sort of starting to embrace the NIL side of things. Belmont is still very much slow to the uptake. Belmont is almost, I don't know Tulsa's number, so I don't want to say this 1000% sure. I would say I am confident that Belmont's budget is half of Tulsa's at least, and 4, 5, 6 times less than Colorado State, about 10 times less than St. Louis's. Belmont is operating in like the few 100,000 range, not few million range. And they've still kept good players. They've still developed more good ones. They are rolling, and they are elite offense to watch. He is one of the coaches that has all the X and O tools, I think, to be elite, and has always found great players, and I think would do it at any job. I certainly am not rooting for him to leave Belmont, because these teams are super fun every year. But if he does, I think whoever is the AD that makes that happen will look very, very smart very quickly.
Yeah, and let's get right into just how much I absolutely love Alexander. And I do think part of it is like he coaches how I like to coach offense. He is just in constant attack mode. Everything, as soon as they get into the half court, is just action after action after action towards the rim. There is zero window dressing. There is zero let's reverse the ball a couple of times just to feel like we're moving the ball. There's not like let's do an exchange just to feel like we're moving players. It is just like, oh, let's find our best shooter and pin in for him. Let's find an athletic wing. Okay, let's give him a back screen. Oh, a defender sleeping. Okay, let's run in from the corner and flare that guy. And as you watch them play, it is just action, 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 all in the half court. And they make you guard 4 or 5 things on the same possession. And then eventually when you blow one of those coverages, they score. So the way that they play offense, like I will say, one is like awesome for this level. It works for all their players, because even if they aren't great offensive players, okay, well, if you get them in 3 or 4 actions, they'll find something that works. But it is also something that I absolutely I think would work at higher levels. Absolutely would work with better players. I just absolutely love how they play basketball. It's also even a little bit of a different style than what they've done in the last couple of years, even though, and I really like what they did the last couple of years. They just like, Alexander continues to evolve and is still doing awesome stuff offensively. And I'd also say they're awesome defensively. I don't have clips here too, but that's another thing. If you're looking for just kind of like their upside, they are a very balanced team of what they do on the offensive side and the defensive side. And yeah, I think it's going to be big. So we do have some defensive clips here too. And I do think this is really notable, Sweeney, because look how aggressive the drop is. They play these pick and rolls with the drop defender like well below the free throw line. And I know a lot of people that watch our videos will know that I always say, like, I really like more aggressive coverages. A lot of teams that are really, really good defensively at the high major level are being very, very aggressive in pick and roll coverage. I do think it's kind of notable, and we'll see once I get into some of these more like lower one bid leagues, how some of these other teams play this way. But Belmont is playing this extremely conservative pick and roll defense and having a lot of success with it. But I think it's also in kind of an interesting kind of realignment story. Like it's crazy. I think Belmont was in the OVC not all that long ago. The thought of Belmont in the OVC seems crazy right now, though. I guess when you talk about their NIL figures, maybe it doesn't seem all that crazy.
That to me is, again, that's what's ridiculous. Like they moved up from a low major league to one of the best mid-major leagues and have not missed a beat. Like they're still building top 100-ish teams. They're still and lost their legendary coach. Like still building elite teams, still have built a really good program, still winning 20+ games a year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think too, like they're in the absolute belly of the beast when it comes to like keeping players. Everyone goes to that state getting guys, and like you look at some of the freshmen that they have, they were like underrated, not super heralded guys from out of state that they were able to get at Belmont. You look at some of the transfers that they brought in were not guys that were productive at other levels, whether it be higher levels or kind of more lateral moves. So like they're clearly developing guys. They're clearly evaluating guys that it is like looking at the age of their roster and like, okay, there's like everyone who's doing stuff at Belmont now has not put up resume at other places, whether it's because they're freshmen or sophomores that have only been at Belmont and or were probably not guys that were talked about too much as recruits, or they were guys who did not do much at other levels. So I think the Missouri Valley like might have turned into the absolute best league that you have a 0% chance at getting a second bid. Like they're like the best, like there is no possible way of getting an at-large bid league. And that has made it very, very difficult for a lot of coaches. And I do wonder if Alexander is, gotten stuck, will be stuck, but whatever the case may be. But yeah, that is someone who I think, like you said, I can't think of a single job that opened last year that I heard his name really talked about with. I've heard some like smart people say, oh, this place like should look at Alexander. I don't know how serious it all was, but yeah, always tough to go on our show. And like, whenever we talk about like a coach at a mid-major and it's like, oh, well, like this guy's doing really good. Where would he go next? So sorry to fans who, take that in a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, want to show these guys respect and right. Definitely really, really, really impressed with what Alexander's not just done this year, but for many years.
Here's the easy way of putting it, right? Like, Rick Byrd could have left Belmont and chose not to because he loved it. And like, I think every year an athletic director at a power conference school should be doing everything they can to convince Casey Alexander that he shouldn't love Belmont this much. Let's put it that way. Right. Like that's the, and again, because of the changes, like I think there's guys who maybe traditionally would have felt like I would love to be able to stay at this place and really plant my roots. It's a great job. It's Nashville. It's a beautiful place to live, all these things, who now have to reconsider that. And I hope that guys like Casey Alexander feel like they can stay if they want to. But again, he's someone that, I mean, I'll just list off like the guys that they have recruited to Belmont: Ben Shepard, Will Richard, Jacoby Gillespie, Cade Tyson's one of the best players in the Big Ten right now statistically. Malik Dia was one of the best players on a Sweet 16 Ole Miss team last year and has been phenomenal. And as you said, like their resumes beforehand certainly did not speak to that. And a lot of these younger guys will be, potentially the next wave of that. So again, just to me, one of the great programs in college basketball, Belmont, and the fact that Alexander has maintained that is quite impressive, especially given all the changes and the things that they have had to figure out how to win in spite of. Is very, very impressive. And I certainly do enjoy watching his teams. And I do think the Valley is a little bit more manageable this year without Ben McCollum or Darren DeVries Drake that's like a dominant 30-win team. Bradley's a little bit further down. Obviously, I think Northern Iowa is very good. Murray State looks phenomenal as well. We'll get into those teams maybe throughout this year. Illinois State has good talent, but it does feel like the seas have parted a little bit, and the opportunity is now to go really break through. And it's nice to see that the Bruins have seemingly done just that so far. So looking forward to watching that conference play out. One more team in this video, Fawcett, we wanted to talk about really one of the bigger surprises, I think, in college basketball, which is Tulsa. Tulsa cracked the top 75 in KenPom after beating New Mexico State on December 13th. This is a team that was 267th last season, 316th the first year that Conkle had the job. They have made massive, massive strides. This is a guy who won a lot at Louisiana Tech, got the Tulsa job. It seemed like a great hire. It hadn't worked out. I think entered this year with a little bit of pressure and just nailed some really key portal evaluations with guys like Tylen Riley and Miles Barnstable, who have them looking like a team that could win a wide open American, right? Like Memphis is not what they have been. Their talent level is a little lower. Obviously, South Florida is very talented. You've seen some flashes from a UAB or a Wichita, but it's wide open. And as of our recording this, Tulsa is actually the highest rated KenPom team in the American Conference right now, which I don't think anyone would have saw coming in the preseason.
No, like you mentioned those early years for Conkle at Tulsa. Like it was like sad to watch that first year where they were like deep in the 300s of KenPom and like just nothing was working. And then even last year when the wheels started to kind of come off, they had a number of games that they just got ripped from them in overtime. Like everything was so sad. And now you watch this team and it plays with so much confidence and so much swagger with some of these guards. I really love their use of the dribble handoff in so many ways as they just either get into these kind of Princeton catches, again, to those wide zooms, have a couple guys that can knock down shots, using the drive just as they get downhill, start to drive into the defender of another man, and then get that handoff as the advantage is built. And when you watch kind of Tulsa play, because of all these dribble handoffs, it just looks like their opponent is always just like chasing them because they're constantly getting into these dribble handoffs that just put them like the defender's like a half second behind, another half second behind. And it's been really good. And I think then too, talking about Tylen Riley, like you mentioned, he's someone I've just been so impressed by for kind of like size at the position, having that kind of downhill first step. He's got the athleticism to hang with some of the athletes that this league does have. They've become a team that just like, as I watch them play, like not only are they the top KenPom team, not only have they, gotten some of those, decent wins, but they really, it doesn't feel like a novelty. It doesn't feel like they've gotten lucky. It doesn't feel like they've just bombed a bunch of shots and they've fallen. They don't play like a funky zone or something that's just like a novel. Like it does seem very, very real. And, again, for them to be top 50 offense at the time that we're recording and just like using such simple concepts so well, having guys who can make plays one-on-one. And I do feel like Riley's a guy who could really do some special things in March with just his ability to create finish through contact around the rim with some of those kind of, you saw in those clips, take contact and still find ways to put the ball in the bucket. Like really interesting team. And one that I just had kind of disregarded after the last couple of years of their horrible luck and challenges to put together competitive rosters.
Yeah, I mean, Tylen Riley is a guy who averaged 7.5 points per game on 37% from the field last year at Cal Baptist. Like that's a monster breakout sort of out of nowhere. Miles Barnstable was really, really good he was very impressive at St. Thomas last year, but not a guy that like had people beating down his door in the portal comparative to maybe some of the other guys that did. And he's had a phenomenal year. They hit the JUCO ranks hard. That's helped them a lot. Their freshman guard, Jalen Lawal, who's someone I know that people really liked out of Texas in high school. He's made an impact. So just an example of a place that is fighting for every dollar in the NIL world. Football is obviously important to places like that. And the American, I think as a whole, has really struggled with this like push and pull of not having the big TV money, but also having, really important that they get football right. and you've had to really nail some of these evaluations and building your roster. And I think Tulsa certainly did just that and has done a really nice job of putting together a group that could win its conference and really be one of the big surprises in mid-major hoops. So a lot of fun to watch. And I think that American race, again, despite them maybe lacking top end teams, will be a lot of fun because there's just not a lot of differential between 1 and 6, 1 and 7. And I'm intrigued to see who emerges there. I do think Memphis will be in that conversation, obviously, but Tulsa looks as good as the bunch right now.
Yeah, and it feels like they do have the kind of enough athleticism, enough kind of physical toughness to play with. Like that's where like Memphis has had the advantage and last couple of years, even if they haven't always done a bunch of stuff at a high level, they're still able to kind of out athlete the league at times. And I think for the style of play that Tulsa has and some of that explosiveness offensively, that could be the difference. But I think with Tulsa and Belmont, especially, it's taking time to look at what they've done now, like where it's still gonna be tough paths. Like these still seem like one bid leagues for sure that are all going to come down to single elimination play. But yeah, teams that are well positioned, and it's been fun to look at them today.
Yeah, no doubt. Good groups, lots of reasons to be excited about mid-major basketball right now, even in the world that we live in with the portal and NIL and everything that's changed. We will have another episode like this talking about some one bid, more traditional one bid leagues. True mid majors that have a chance to maybe win a first round game or play a unique way. That has been a lot of fun for us to research, and we hope that all of you, and we know that all of you as subscribers of the Basketball Under Review, do love checking out some of these teams beyond just the biggest names, biggest programs. So especially around the holidays, we figured we had to take the lighter time in the schedule to do just that. We hope you guys are enjoying the content. We will have one more video next week on that, and then back to regularly scheduled programming as league play heats up. So stay tuned, please subscribe, and we will see you all very soon.